Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we are diving into something that connects every single person on the planet, language. But we aren't just talking about vocabulary or accents, we are looking at the invisible scaffolding that holds language together.
That sounds mysterious. When you say scaffolding, do you mean grammar? Because I remember struggling with grammar rules in school.
Exactly. But imagine those rules aren't just for English or Spanish, but rules that might apply to every language. Linguists have debated for a long time whether there are universals, specific patterns that exist across all human languages, regardless of where they are spoken.
It seems like a tough thing to prove. I mean, there are thousands of languages and they all sound so distinct.
That's the challenge. But a fascinating new study just published in the journal Nature Human Behaviour has tackled this head-on. An international team, led by researchers from Saarland University and the Max Planck Institute, decided to put these linguistic universals to the ultimate test.
So, did they find the holy grail of grammar? A rule that everyone follows?
Well, they found that the glass is about one-third full. They tested 191 proposed universals, and about a third of them stood up to rigorous statistical testing.
Only a third? That actually sounds surprisingly low. I would have assumed that since all humans have the same basic brain structure, our languages would share more rules.
That's the challenge. But a fascinating new study just published in the journal Nature Human Behaviour has tackled this head-on. An international team, led by researchers from Saarland University and the Max Planck Institute, decided to put these linguistic universals to the ultimate test.
So, did they find the holy grail of grammar? A rule that everyone follows?
Well, they found that the glass is about one-third full. They tested 191 proposed universals, and about a third of them stood up to rigorous statistical testing.
Only a third? That actually sounds surprisingly low. I would have assumed that since all humans have the same basic brain structure, our languages would share more rules.
It is a bit of a reality check. But the lead researchers, Anne-Marie Verkeek and Russell Gray, point out that this is actually a really strong result. It proves that languages do not evolve at random. Even with all the diversity we hear, there are deep-rooted constraints on how we structure communication.
Okay, before we get into the specific rules they found, how did they even test this? You mentioned thousands of languages. Surely they didn't look at all of them by hand?
They used something called Grambank. It's the world's most comprehensive database of grammatical features. They analyzed over 1,700 languages. But here is the clever part. They had to use some very heavy math to make it fair.
Make it fair? How can a study be unfair?
Well, think about it like this. If you study 5 languages, but they are all from the same family, say French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese and Romanian, you're going to find a lot of similarities.
Right, because they're all siblings, historically speaking. They all come from Latin.
Exactly. That's called genealogical dependence. But there's also geographic dependence. Languages that are neighbors often borrow words and rules from each other, even if they aren't related.
So, if you don't account for that, you might think you found a universal human rule, but really you just found a European rule or a family tradition.
Precisely. Previous studies tried to fix this by just picking languages that were far apart. But this new study used state-of-the-art Bayesian spatiophylogenetic analysis.
That is a mouthful.
It is, but simply put, it's a statistical method that mathematically subtracts the influence of shared history and shared geography. It filters out the family traditions and the neighborhood borrowing to see what is truly universal.
That is incredibly rigorous. So, after filtering out all that noise, what actually survived? What are these universals?
The strongest evidence they found relates to word order and hierarchy. For example, there are strong patterns regarding whether verbs come before or after objects.
Like how in English we say, I ate the apple, verb then object. But in Japanese, it's the other way around.
Right. But the study shows that these aren't just random coin flips. The placement of the verb often predicts other grammatical rules in the language. It's a dependency. If you do A, you're very likely to do B.
So it's like a package deal. If you choose one structure, you're committed to a few others to make the language efficient?
That's the perfect way to put it. It suggests that there are cognitive pressures. Our brains prefer certain structures because they're easier to process or communicate with. The senior author Russell Gray said that these pressures push languages towards a limited set of preferred grammatical solutions.
I like that. It makes language feel like a living thing that evolves to fit the human mind.
And speaking of evolution, that was a huge takeaway here. Verkek noted that language change is central to this. These universals aren't static laws written in stone. They are pathways that languages tend to evolve into over and over again.
So, going back to the glass half full comment, why did they frame it that way?
Russell Gray mentioned they debated how to write the paper. They could have said, look, 2/3 of the theories were wrong. But they realized the more important finding was that 1/3 were right.
It narrows the field. Instead of chasing every theory, linguists can now focus on that solid 30% and ask, why these ones? What does this tell us about the human brain?
Exactly. It clears the fog. We now know which grammatical patterns truly hold up under evolutionary scrutiny.
It's amazing to think that despite thousands of years of history and migration and cultures developing in total isolation from each other, we still end up using the same structural blueprints for our sentences.
It really highlights that underneath all our differences, the way we think and organize the world is remarkably similar.
Well, that is a comforting thought. A huge thank you to the team at Saarland University and the Max Planck Institute for this research.
And thank you for listening. If you want to take deeper, the study is in Nature Human Behaviour. Until next time, keep the conversation going.
Bye everyone.